Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Hey there, this is your friend Charlie Hunter, and welcome to the Reasonably Fine Art Talk. Now, I apologize for being a couple minutes late. I leave town very early tomorrow morning to head down to uh, Knoxville, Tennessee to judge the Smoky Mountain plein air. And that is going to be very fun. It's also somewhat depressing and terrifying because the group of painters is absolutely wonderful. And that means that most of the best paintings won't get prizes because you have this many prizes to give and you're going to have this many great paintings. And that's always rough. Also, because you're friends with it's your peers, and it is challenging. But I am still honored to be asked, and so I'll be judging the main event on Friday night, and then the quick draw on Saturday. So it's a very quick down and back. I'm flying out of Logan Airport in Boston, which I seldom fly out of. I normally fly out of Bradley down in Hartford, but there is a nonstop flight on Allegiant Air between Boston and Knoxville, and I thought, why not try Allegiant Air? So I was over in that part of my life, because that is the funny thing about being a professional artist is how little time you end up having to be able to devote to painting. Most of your time is spent packing up art. That is the biggest pain in the neck about being a professional artist is packing up. I'm going to just make sure I can see the comments. So just making, yeah. Anyway, you spend so much time cutting cardboard to be the right size, and then it's a little bit the wrong size, and calculating shipping rates, et cetera, and that leads into today's topic, which is doing a residency. This is a residency that I did in Eastport, Maine, the last 2 weeks of August 2025. Now, Eastport, ladies and gentlemen, is the furthest east you can go in the state of Maine. Well, actually, Lubec is a little bit further, 3 miles further, but it's a 40-minute drive to get to Lubec because there's some water between the two. There is a ferry that runs some days, but not the days you want to go. The days you want to go, the ferry's not running. But it's very funny when you say, oh, wow, it's so isolated, because it's an 8-hour drive going out from Bellows Falls, Vermont to Eastport, Maine. And I came back on a day when it was raining, and I learned that Maine is much like a sponge in that if it gets wet, it expands. It took 9 hours coming back. But it's 2.5 hours north of Mount Desert Island, Acadia. That gives you a sense of how Maine is just huge. It just goes on and on and on. And you think, oh, it must be so isolated. But us Americans have such an American-centric mindset. 30 minutes away is a town in Canada that has Walmarts and all that sort of stuff. So it's fascinating to be there. But anyway, I decided this last winter to look at opportunities in other New England states to kind of expand my awareness of what I paint and how I think about painting. And it was suggested that I look at residencies in Maine. I had not a bias against, but I was hesitant about doing a residency because I've got a beautiful studio. I set my own schedule in day-to-day life. It feels a little selfish to take a residency uh, slot from someone who may be juggling, many may not have the opportunities that I have. But I applied for a couple of residencies and I got the one in Eastport. Now, this is at a place called the Tides Institute. The Tides Institute in Eastport is a husband and wife, was the brainchild of a husband and wife team. He loves preservation, building preservation. She loves art. And I think together they decided the arts are an economic driver for a small town. Eastport had been the sardine capital of the United States, or the sardine capital of the East Coast of the United States in the first half of the 20th century, but that died by about the 1980s. And so Eastport really was on hard times, and the buildings were deteriorating. And they have, by hook and by crook, they have got about 6 buildings now. There's the Tides Institute in an old bank. There are the 2 studios for the visiting residency artists that are in a commercial block kind of across the street and up slightly. And then there are 2 churches that they have been given. I, I think there's quite a lot of extra church inventory in Eastport. And one is going to be for kind of larger installations, I think, and one is going to be more for lectures because it has excellent acoustics. And the old Masonic temple right downtown is going to be additional exhibition space that's being renovated. And I think there are another couple of buildings that they've got. But anyway, it is obviously a labor of love, but it's also an amazing opportunity for visiting artists. And I thought I'm going to break it into several reasonably fine art talks because there's a lot to talk about. I did a lot of work, and I'm going to try to be keeping these reasonably fine art talks under 45 minutes. It's so easy to have them go for an hour. I may edit this one at some point and cut out all this blathering. But anyway, so I'm just going to talk a little about what the situation was and how the first part of my residency worked. So let's go to the slideshow, shall we? Let's make my head smaller, shall we? No, that's making my head bigger. How about this? That's better. Anyway, so this is the studio that I was in. Upper left there, that is the North Studio. There's the North Studio and the South Studio. The South Studio was occupied by a fellow who is a sound artist from Oklahoma. And so there was a lot of like microphones and kicking buckets of seawater and stuff going on in the other studio. Very, very nice man. I'm going to make myself go away right now, and we'll just do the full screen. How about that? Yeah. There is me working at my table, and the table was right in front. It's the window on the left, on that above, on the top picture. Then looking back into the studio, and this is partway through the residency where I've started to put work up on the walls. Then there are the display windows where I would put work as it was drying so that people could see what I was up to. The terms of the residency involved some public interaction with the public, which I am happy to do. I enjoy interaction with the public. But when I got there, they said basically, look, you're only here for 2 weeks. Just dive into the art. Just do what you want to do. But I felt really, since it's so obviously on the street and interaction with the public is clearly part of what they are hoping to have happen. Um, I the routine I fell into was to go out in my vehicle every morning and sketch from the driver's seat, and then in the afternoon come back to the studio and paint. And I will go through now some of the work that was done. If anyone has any questions, I mean, I see Walter Weaver is here from Hernando Beach, Florida, and Artis is here. Don't know if I know some other people are there. If you feel like commenting, comment. And if you get any questions, I'll try to answer them. I'll try to keep monitoring them as I continue. The first day, I was just getting my sea legs. Let's make my head go away for all this blathering, so you can see the art and stuff more. I was getting my sea legs and just driving around downtown Eastport. On the photo on the left, the right side of that is the old canning plant. It's not where they canned sardines, but it's where they made the cans for the sardines. And that is still there. And if you have a few extra $1 million, you could be the owner. Well, you could get it for $150,000, but it will take quite a few $1 million to have it be something usable. But so there's this alley, and my original idea was to kind of follow where the railroad had been, because as you know, I do a lot of railroad paintings. In the summer, however, it's pretty hard to see where the railroad had been, because the railroad went out by about 1976. I think was pulled up by about 1980. And there are some embankments, but those aren't terribly visually interesting. And during the summer, there's a lot of foliage. So anyway, I'd go out in my car, and I've got this little setup I think I've told you about, with an old breadboard and some D-rings with a wire that I hook over the steering wheel. And I sit in the driver's seat and I sketch. And that is a typical sketch. And that is what I was sketching. There is the canning plant in all its glory, and a rather long sketch, a rather involved sketch that I did, which took about, it says on the dashboard for this program that I do this with, it shows me what slide I'm on. So it's obscuring what I have written there, but down at the bottom, it says what time I started and what time I ended. I would assume this sketch was about an hour or an hour and a little bit more, because it's pretty involved sketch, because I did not do a painting of the canning plant, because in order to get all those symmetrical windows and brick columns, to get that right, eyeballing it would be extremely difficult. But I did love that building. And apparently all the local teenagers when the tide is out, they all go underneath the old pier over on the right. And that's kind of their illicit hangout area. Really, really neat, enormous building. Then, so first day, I arrived at the lodging that I was given, which is the old GAR, which is Grand Army of the Republic. It was a fraternal organization, the old GAR building. And this was my view out where I parked the car. And there was just something about the arrangement of the foliage and that triangle of the house at the end of the street, and kind of how the hillside was rushing down from the left. I did a sketch, which is very small there, because it was my worst sketch that I did the entire time. and I wanted to, I just like everybody else, ladies and gentlemen, I have an ego, and I am not eager to show my worst sketch large, but I nevertheless did a sketch. And then at the studio, I did these two paintings. The larger one is the one I'm pretty happy with that painting. That is just using, for those of you really interested in my materials, that is just using the Cobra water mixable oils, just the ivory black on a Frederick's multimedia board, 9x12. I had a huge number of extra 9x12 boards that I brought with me, both the Frederick's multimedia boards and Dick Blick linen panels. The multimedia board, you just need to wet down about 10 minutes before you start painting. It is sized with something, but it is a really neat surface, especially if one is painting in a very watercolory sort of way. What I wanted to be doing during this fellowship, during this residency, was to not be super tight. I wanted to produce a lot of work. I wanted to average 2 pieces a day. So I went out and did another sketch. Upper right is the sketch. That was from 2:50 in the afternoon to 3:25 in the afternoon. I think that was the same day that I did that sketch up at the house. Then I took a black and white snapshot. So I had that. And then I did 2 paintings based on that. Neither of those paintings particularly set the world on fire as far as I was concerned. I really liked the sketch. And what I was interested in was the kind of the pull of the shadow under the eave from left to right. That being the thing that tied the whole landscape together. You've got the foliage on the left, the foliage on the right, and then just that pulled line. That is the through line. I don't think I did a particularly good job on either of the paintings, but I did like the sketch. Next day, went out to looking for railroad embankments. There the railroad embankment is way in the background. This is on the way off of Moose Island toward the First Nations settlement, and I really liked this tree, and I did a very careful sketch of the tree. It says from 10:10 to 11:15 a.m. Did the tree and its surrounding environs, went back to the studio and did two iterations. The one on top is 9x12, and I have since put some kind of glazes on top of it. That's very much a work in progress. The one on the extreme right is on a linen pad. I brought some of these linen pad. I brought this linen pad of Centurion acrylic primed linen 12x16 because, as you know, Jason Sacron and I are going to be doing that online workshop in 2026, and that's the surface that Jason uses. And I want to get conversant with that surface so that our students can just be using the Centurion, either the pads or the panels, but I want to get used to doing it so that the students don't feel like they have to have the surface that Jason uses as opposed to the surface that I use. So I did a lot of stuff on this surface that week. Again, neither of the paintings blow me away, but I'm very happy with the sketch. Then here's some more of the old railroad landscape. That blasted bit of rock there that was blasted away to make to make way for the tracks coming into town. And so I did a sketch there. I also obviously snapped a photo. Then at the studio, I did 3 iterations. The vertical one is a 9x12 black linen panel. The horizontals are both 12x16 Centurion linen pad. The color mix I used this week, also for folks interested in that, the color mix was entirely, oh, there's my head very small. Let's see how that works. The color mix was, I just used Cobra, Ivory Black, and Asphaltum. It's my new favorite color combo. It's superseding Van Dyke Brown and Raw Umber. So I started out just using the Asphaltum and Ivory Black, and later in the week, I interjected some, I also brought into the mix some titanium white. So everything was just using that palette. Okay, next slide. I did a couple of just experimental pieces, not based on anything literal in front of me. These were based purely on the experience of what I had, purely based on what I had experienced to date. Obviously, the one on the left is using a lot of squeegee. The one on the right is, that again would be on one of the Fredericks multimedia panels. Because see how beautifully the wet into wet, how it feathers so like a watercolor? That is the closest I feel like I have gotten to combining watercolor with oil, watercolor technique with oil paint itself. And it's something I'm very excited to keep following. Another day, I'll make my head go away because now I'm blocking the sketch. This is the building where I was staying. This is the old Grand Army of the Republic Hall. I had the whole bottom floor to myself. I could have been putting on contra dances. It was a lot of space. But I did a careful sketch, snapped a black and white photo, and then in the afternoon at the studio, working from the sketch and the photo, did the painting. This is on the Centurion linen pad. You can kind of see the woozling of the surface because I just laid them down on a flat surface to photograph them. I was fairly happy with this painting, except look how I got the angle completely crazy on the building. Look at reality. It's pretty broad, that building. Look at my sketch. It's a little bit wrong. It's a little bit too peaked. Look at my painting. It's a lot too peaked. Very interesting. That's why sketching is so great. That's why sketching is so crucial. So that's the very first batch of the work that I did. And I followed that basic model for the rest of my time at the Tides Institute. As I say, I was there for 2 weeks, which went by so quickly. I thought I was going to eat a lot of lobster rolls, but it turns out that the best sandwich in Eastport, Maine is the haddock Reuben. I couldn't get enough of those haddock Reubens. It's a Reuben, so it's rye bread, Thousand Island dressing, sauerkraut, but instead of the corned beef, instead of the pastrami or whatever, it is a hunk of deep fried haddock, and the haddock up there is a fish. It is a fishing and lobstering port. So the haddock is fantastic. So a lot of haddock Rubens, and also the hot dog stand out on the commercial pier, Rosie's Hot Dogs, for about $4. You can get an off the chain hot dog. So that was good. So there was a lot of sketching. There was a lot of hot dogs and Rubens, and there was a lot of experimental painting. So this is part one. Part two will be in a couple of weeks after I'm just traveling around a lot, but I'll do the second half of the art that I produced. And I am hoping to arrange to have the folks from Tides have a conversation about what it is they're trying to do. Because I think in our world of art, these residencies are kind of mysterious. And Kristen, the woman who oversees the art program, is wonderfully approachable, and I think should be great to talk to. So, all right, that's today, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, 26 minutes. That's much better, much more digestible. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And we'll be back again soon with another reasonably fine art talk. You take good care. Bye-bye.